welcome back to Roundtail Restoration, everybody. My name's Chris Fisher. Behind me that you saw me taking the car cover off, that's my 1966 Triumph Spitfire. Finished up restoration. Well, not that you've ever really done a restoration, but finished her up fall last year, and she's been under her winter hibernation ever since. So today I'm going to slowly but surely bring her out. So I am embarrassed to say that I didn't really do any winterizing on Dorothy before I put her away. Just kind of rolled her in here after a pretty halfway decent drive just to get everything, all the moisture out of the oil and everything like that, let that stuff burn off, and then essentially put the car cover on her, and that was about it. So first things first, I'm going to get the battery out and hook it up to my charger real quick just to make sure that that's healthy. A lot of people will put their batteries on battery minders over the winter. Again, I didn't do any of that, but I don't, brand new battery, so I don't really envision too many problems, so that'll be first. All right, so the battery's already been disconnected electrically. I didn't leave it connected with the new battery cables and all that when I left the car. All right, so it looks like the battery's reading about 12.4 volts here, so really not in bad shape. I'll put it on the charge here. It should spit out a percentage, I think, once it kind of kicks in. 12 volts and 65%. So that's probably definitely enough to get her turning over. Don't know that would be enough to get her started from not being run in a couple months. So that's fine. We'll leave it on the charge here, and we'll continue down the path. All right, so the next kind of thing I'm going to do here is just make an inspection of the car, go over it. I got a real bright flashlight there, and go over all the areas, check for fluids. I'm going to check for brake fluid level, clutch fluid level, oil level, all that kind of stuff. And again, the lighting is really bad over there, and it's just going to be me poking and prodding on the car anyway. I also did not do any mice exclusion tricks and tips and stuff like that. Though the garage down here is trapped and everything like that, and there's been no activity that we've been able to ever find. So I'm confident that hasn't happened yet, but I am still going to look for that. That would really suck. But otherwise, like I said, I'm just going to do it once around, see if I've got oil leaking somewhere. It is a British car after all, and things like that, just to get a general lay of the land. All right, so everything looks good. The master cylinder fluid levels are down just a little bit, quarter of an inch or so. I'm going to push the car out and kind of wheel her into where I'm standing right now. One, I've got the doors here to my left, and if I'm going to start her up, I want to get the doors open, obviously, so I don't choke myself out in here. So that'll give me an idea of what fluids have leaked from the bottom of the car. And again, it's British, so we'll see what happens. Well, surprisingly not too bad. So that drop right there, it's probably about the size of a silver dollar, maybe a little bit bigger. That's probably from the front ceiling block. Those are notorious for leaking on the Spitfires. They didn't make them out of real high quality metal, and I didn't know that until after my rebuild. The back one, which is a little bit bigger, looks like a Warshach pattern to look at. It's from the rear main, I think. So they got the scroll seal. This is the old Mark I motor, so there's a scroll seal in there. So that may very well just be, what these motors do, but it doesn't look very fresh, so that's encouraging. And then two spots back here, again about the size of 50-cent piece or so, from the rear and the front of the differential, and that thing's leaked for about ever. So I kind of have the car situated here a little bit, not very well. It's close enough to the back doors here where I'll be able to get some ventilation. I probably could get it through the doors, but I'm afraid to do that by myself, and I don't have any help here today. So I'll go ahead and continue on to get her fired up. All right, another thing to check, not as important to me today, but before she gets on the road, is tire pressures, and I did check them. I think Triumph for the Mark II calls for like 18 pounds in the front and 22, 24, 26, something like that in the rear. But that's with bias ply tires, not the radials. Anyway, what I run is 22 in the front and 26 in the rear, and that's about where they are. A little bit higher than that in the fronts, but not enough to worry about right now. Next up is to get her prepped to get her running. So arguably one of the most important things you need to do before you start the motor, especially after this long of a hibernation, is to get oil flowing through the motor with a minimal amount of back pressure that you can get. So there's a couple ways to do this. One, you just pull the ignition coil wire and the engine won't fire that way, and you turn it over and let oil pressure build up. Two, and what I'm going to do is not only remove the ignition wire from the coil, but also pull all 4 spark plugs. So that way the motor is not fighting against anything at all, and it can most easily turn. The other thing you can do, which is a little drastic, which is what I did prior to my motor rebuild, And I guess you could argue now that the motor's been sitting so long that every last drop of oil is probably down in the sump. Is you can pull the distributor out and connect the drill, and there's the bottom of the distributor connects right up to the oil pump, and you can turn the gear in the distributor and get the oil pump to rotate just by itself without the motor, and that'll allow oil to flow all over the place and everything like that. Works really well. Like I said, I did it on my motor rebuild, but I don't feel the need to do that today. And also, you know, you always take, while minor, maybe you always take the chance of messing up your timing. So I'm not going to be doing that. So I'll pull all 4 spark plugs here, get the high tension lead from the coil disconnected. I'm still letting the battery charge a little bit. And once that's good, I'll get the motor rotating and build up some oil pressure and then go from there. Another disadvantage, I guess you could say, of the Triumph Spitfire is there is no independent oil gauge where you can actually measure oil pressure. If you look in the bottom, the speedometer there, it's got 3 lights, blue, green, and red, left to right. The one in the middle there, the green one, that's your oil light. It's kind of funny because if that comes on, that means you don't have oil pressure, so it's definitely not green, but the red one is the ignition. So, you know, who knows, but that's how they did it. When you first turn the car on, obviously that light will be on, and as I rotate it, I would expect that light to go off. So I'm going to obviously be looking for that. That's going to be my key indicator. A lot of people will put in aftermarket oil pressure gauges in these things, and again, because I was trying to keep it as original as I could, I decided not to do that. All right, I've got the spark plugs out. A couple things to mention. Number one, spark plug may run into interference with the generator. You may have to drop the generator down a little bit to get the socket in there, but I'm lucky enough where it just barely fits. Another thing you want to make note of, unless you've got it memorized by now, the distributor rotates counterclockwise, so like this, and the firing order is 1, 3, 4, 2. Number 1's towards the front of the engine. So if you're not familiar enough with that, or it's not ingrained in your brain yet, you'll want to make notes of what cable goes to which cylinder. So just, you know, a little tab or something like that on there. So again, pulled it off of pulled the spark plugs out. I'm also going to remove this center lead from the coil. That's it for the electrical side of it, so that I don't have to worry about the motor firing, and it also relieves some back pressure here. Next thing I need to worry about is fuel. All right, one of the other things that's kind of convenient here about the Spitfire, if you can see, this is the fuel pump right here. It's an original AC fuel pump, and right underneath of that is a little lever that sticks out. I'll take the flashlight away and point it out, but it's going to get kind of dark. Probably not even really see it. Guys, right here, right underneath the fuel pump. And essentially what that is a manual priming lever. So you just press down on that and it actuates the diaphragm in there, sucking the gas out of the tank, putting it into the float bowls of the carburetor just in case they're not full, which in this case they're probably not because the car's been sitting a while. So that's, again, a convenient little thing. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and prime it. You can hear it. I've hit it a couple times and got some pressure on it, so you can hear it. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up or not, though. All right, so you heard those couple like suck sounds. So that's the fuel moving through, and then eventually you'll press down on this and there's just nothing happens. And what has happened is the floats are now full and the little float valves in there have shut. So there's no place for the gas to go, so it doesn't go anywhere. So now you know that the fuel system is primed, and that's good to go. And really all that's left now is to connect the battery and turn the motor over. All right, got the battery connected with the cabling and everything that I ordered from CE Auto Electronics. Love that stuff, and all custom made, and was reasonably priced, about $100 for all the cables that I needed, the big 4 gauge that I needed. So plugs are out, battery is still on the charge, but I'll take that off here in a second. Did one nice thing also about the Spitfire is the starter solenoid right there. You can see where the positive and negative cables come in. On the back of that little black button there, that is a switch essentially to allow the solenoid to actuate. Very convenient for starting the motor from the engine compartment in case you're working on it and stuff like that. So you still have to turn the ignition switch on up here. So you still have to go to ignition, and you can see that all the indicating lights come on and the fuel gauge starts to deflect and all that. So that gives you power, but now I could hit that button right there and start turning the motor over and it'll turn. However, because I want to keep an eye on that oil pressure light, I am not going to do it from there. I will do it from the key. One other thing I will point out is I do have my handy fire extinguisher right there. God forbid something happens. But the car has been sitting a while, and you know I'm not really concerned about the motor catching on fire, but who knows what electrical stuff might get a little wonky. So we're going to go ahead and turn her over. All right, again, I haven't done this, so who knows? I might just click and nothing will happen, but I'm looking for that oil pressure light to go out. Make sure it's not in gear. All right, I don't like to run it for more than a second or two. Hopefully, eventually the oil pressure builds up here. All right, again, thing's been sitting a while. All right, starting to get a little nervous. All right, there it goes. So the oil light is cleared now. That thing clears at like 3 pounds, so it's real stupid low. Now I've got the motor kind of primed here. I'll probably do that 1 or 2 more times just to make sure right before I'm ready to start. But I'll get the doors opened here, and hopefully she'll fire. All right, got the spark plugs reconnected. The high tension lead reconnected to the coil. Battery charger is disconnected over here, so we're ready to start. So the fuel's primed, and we'll see how it goes. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start it up. One thing I will mention is that you don't want to run the runner for 5 minutes and then stop. I'm going to let it get up to normal operating temperature, get any moisture out of the oil or anything like that. You don't want to leave that stuff in there. Same with the exhaust. Even though I have stainless steel exhaust, you don't want to. One of the byproducts of combustion is water, so you don't want to fill your exhaust lines up with water and not get it hot enough that it's going to not evaporate that water off. So we see what happens. I did put a little bit of choke on there, full choke, and then just as soon as it started running, came off of it. Alright, let her run. Alright, I don't know how well you can see, but I got a little bit of smoke down there, and I'm pretty confident that that's just oil leaking that is settled out on the exhaust manifold and the pipes down there, and that's burning off. It was a lot more smoky than it is now. I also had a little leak from this bottom radiator hose when I packed the car up, and that looks like it's not been dripping now anyway. But the top hose, I do have a little bit of a leak right there, and that's dripping down a little bit. But I'm not too worried about that. We'll let that go. I'm not going to stop the car for that. All right, well, that was a success. Full operating temperature, ran it for about 5 minutes or so from that. So it's she's ready to go. I pressed and played with the clutch pedal, and that made the car move forward a little bit and back. Touched the brakes, they didn't go to the floor, so that's good. But no real way to test them. And that's the doorway that I try to fit her through, and she does fit, but I don't want to do that by myself without some help here to guide me. So I'm not, unfortunately, going for a drive today, but soon. That's all I got. Thanks for watching the resurrection or the de-hibernation of Dorothy here, and hopefully within a week or so, she'll be on the road and cruising. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers. Ah, the sweet sounds of spring.